What's up, everybody? It's Pete. I got a fresh episode of Net Fans You Know coming up in a couple seconds with special guest Lucas Kaplan. We're going to be going over the offseason, trade rumors, free agency, and really focusing on Nic Claxton. My camera was a little glitchy this episode. I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal. All right, let's start the episode. Let's go.
Gets it off in time. And he's got it, baby! Big time Nets win!
Oof, the only Net fans you know? The only Nets fans you know? Man. I mean, come on, man. Or are these guys?
Welcome back to the Net Fans You Know podcast. I'm Peter. Welcome to episode number 83. Today, I'm joined by Nets film focus great. And of course, you know him from Netsdaily. Welcome back to the show, Lucas Kaplan. What's going on, bro?
Very nice to be here, man. I'm excited for the off season. I'm excited for this nice weather, and I'm excited to be on to talk about Nic Claxton and some other stuff. So appreciate you.
Yeah, man. I feel like I wanted to talk about Nic Claxton with you. You put out an article for Netsdaily, was like a week or so ago. But I'd be crazy if I didn't mention this. Of course, the big news, Rockets, Nets, is the third overall pick coming to Brooklyn? Is Bridges going out to Houston? That the Grizzlies might be involved? Kevin O'Connor changes the wording of his tweet or his article. That I think it was mostly Houston kind of throwing it out there rather than the Nets. But what do you think about that?
I would say I agree with that. I mean, for the last few months, regardless of how real or how not real or how much you would want some sort of deal to go down, the leaks, these rumors have been coming from the Houston side. That's part of the way these two organizations operate. The Nets are much more tight-lipped, for better, for worse. But I would say this is another step in Houston maybe courting Mikal Bridges, trying to put a little public pressure on the Nets. And I would have to agree with Mr. Net Income in what I've heard, in that this is not something that is real tangible yet. It's another idea being floated, but I think we're a couple steps away from this being really something serious we have to consider.
I'm going to mess up this guy's name. I feel horrible. I think his name is Evan Sittery. He's been posting a lot about the Nets on Twitter. He mentioned that Dorian Finney-Smith might be on his way out. Nets had a lot of offers for him at the deadline. Obviously, they didn't go through. Now, I think it would make sense to see him going out this offseason. I don't think it'd be crazy for us to get a draft pick back, right?
I don't think that'd be crazy at all. With Dorian, it depends on how you fill out the rest of the roster. Are you really looking to get more minutes for Noah Clowney next year? So I think the Nets might wait and see on that depending on how the summer goes, but that's certainly a possibility. And I think really, I mean, with Mikal, it's like if the Nets really, really were interested in trading him, they'd have done it already. I'm not saying there's no possibility an offer could come in and blow them out of the water, but I think you can feel pretty assured in that if they had gotten an offer they liked, if they were really interested, it would have happened by now, because as with Dorian, as with any player, the longer you wait, the less leverage you have, so on and so forth. But I think either way, I wouldn't be shocked if Dorian is the one that sees the door this summer. I don't think it's a sure thing. I wouldn't bet on it. Again, we're still a ways away, but Dorian, I would say, has a higher chance of possibly being traded than Mikal.
I would be shocked if he's not traded. But then again, I was shocked when he wasn't traded at the deadline, right? So who knows? But I've been asking a lot of people this, and I'm really curious to get your opinion on it. Okay. Nets are going to trade Dorian Finney-Smith. I'm just making this up. I'm not a draft guy. This is not something that I'm proficient at, especially this year's draft. There's a lot of polarization. They're good. They suck, blah, blah, blah. Would you take a top 13 pick for Dorian Finney-Smith in this draft, or a top 20, like 22, top 22 next year?
Yeah, I think I'm not quite as plugged in this year, but I would say, just thinking about timeline and stuff like that, I would probably go top 13 this year, because if we're looking at how the Nets have messaged, how they built the roster, they would like to be pretty good, I think, in 2025 or 2026. Who knows about if next year's 2025. So if we're operating on that logic, and they somehow get a lottery pick for Dorian this year, you would want that year to bring whatever rookie they take along. You would want them to get reps in a maybe more low stakes environment this upcoming season compared to 2 years from now when you would want whoever you acquire to be ready to play. So just for me, I'd want them to get that player into the system right now. So if you're giving me that choice, I would say press the button sooner rather than later.
Absolutely. I agree with you 100%. I think I'd rather take like a lottery type talent. Maybe you have a guy who might slip. Listen, I don't know. I'm not very knowledgeable on this, so I'll take my L if I have to, but it's going to be very interesting to see where players' values fall.
There's going to be good players. I mean, there's going to be good players in the draft. You know, there always are, no matter how bad it's considered to be. So maybe the hit rate is lower, but shit, they're going to be out there.
Nets are good at scouting. If there's a guy that they like, I trust Sean Marks.
Yeah, I think that's it. The one thing you trust about this regime specifically is their ability, at least to identify talent in the draft when you look at where they picked getting NBA players in the last few years.
Absolutely. All right. Nic Claxton, okay? We're finally here. I've been talking about this contract, about this time for maybe 2 years. What was it, like a year ago, a year and a half ago? We're saying this guy was snubbed for Defensive Player of the Year. He's been on the team. It seems that they really like him. Last year, he played in 71 games, 11 points, 9.9 rebounds. We'll give him 10 rebounds. 2 assists, shot 62% from the field, 55% from the free throw line. And, overall, a good season. I always say the eye test is a little rougher on him, and the analytics, you really show that what he could be. But, man, that time with Clowney, I forgot how many games it was. It looked like, man, did Clowney just give this guy like a bigger contract? Because you could kind of see them playing together. I don't know. What's your take on all that?
Yeah, we'll start big picture and then zoom in. Big picture, as you said, this guy turned in a top 50 season at age 23. Granted, he was on a very good team, but he was one of the 3 or 4 top shot blockers in the league. One of the best, if not the best, switching big on the perimeter, and he elevated a good team to really great heights. I mean, the Nets were a great team, at least in the upper echelon of the league before that 2023 deadline. So if you're looking to give this guy a contract, 4 years, whatever, age 25 through age 28, let's say, that's probably going to be the best years of his career, you would assume. So you're giving a guy who's turned in a top 50 season in his career, XYZ type of money for the best years of his career. We'll see about injury trouble. You never know what can happen, late growth, whatever. But that is why ultimately I'm on the side of giving him the money that I think the Nets will give him, which is somewhere between $20 and $25 million annually. I think you're right about the eye test this year. He was not as good in 2024 as he was in 2023. As I wrote in the article, he'd have games where he'd thoroughly outplay Jaren Jackson Jr., Chet Holmgren, Victor Wembanyama, and then he'd come back and he'd get, outplayed by not just those guys, but I mean, you remember the Grizzlies game at home, Trey Jameson kind of works him a little bit. I would have no problem if you said it was an up and down, uneven year for Claxton. And the advanced numbers, the basic numbers, they all say that he took a downturn this year. And the question is, which of these last 2 years is more indicative of the type of player he is?
Oh, absolutely. And even I know I mentioned the Clowney thing very quickly, but how much, I know, man, small sample size theater, we all know about it. We all know what it is. How much do you buy into that sample size of them playing together? Instead of having CJ next to Clax, now you have a real body.
Yeah, I mean, we saw they were such a good defense in 2023 because you had KD offering that weak side rim protection, and now you were one of the best defenses in the league at limiting high value looks in the restricted area. So, Clowney's going to have growing pains. I mean, the offense, it's a little raw. He's a raw prospect, and I love Clowney. But the formula, right, size, length, versatile rim protectors is there with Nic Claxton. And then I think this is what you're getting at. When you switch him out on the perimeter and you still have reliable length, shot blocking potential down low, it only serves to make him look better. So I do think that the Clowney Claxton stuff, we'll see. You never know players' long-term futures. But I think the formula that we saw, the general synergy of them, is a very valid, a very real thing, even though it was 10 games, 15 games in Mickey Mouse March.
And just like a consistent guy to hit threes from the corner that isn't like super undersized, that won't get punished, right?
Yeah.
I think that's so helpful. And I love that you mentioned the shot blocking. I would trust Clowney starting next year. We're not going to go for anything anyway. Why not see if you're going to re-sign Claxton? Why not see if these guys can work together? Why not? You had good results last time, right?
I think you have to commit to, unless something drastically changes with the roster. You never know. You have to commit to playing Clowney big minutes. I don't, whether he starts, whether he gets some starts, but he showed enough where you have to invest in him at the NBA level next year. I agree with you 100%.
All right, going back to Claxton, I have some issues. I've been defending Claxton for a very long time. I was talking, like I said, a year ago, man, this guy could walk into a max contract if he's healthy and has something similar to what he did last year. Obviously, he didn't get there, but the age, right? He's still young, but then we talk about him getting kind of beat up a little bit by the bigger centers. And then I think about it, man, it's how comfortable do you feel giving a contract to somebody who may not improve that much? He's getting up in age, right? Like I know he's still young, but let's face it, how much can he improve from now on?
Yeah, I don't think if you give this contract to him, you're banking on like some huge leap. I think you have to bank on consistently what he's shown his peak to be. Now, maybe he gets 5%, 10% better year over year. But yeah, I agree with you. There's no crazy leap coming. I would say, because that's a common refrain, we hear him getting bodied by bigger centers. And it's true. He's just not going to be the biggest guy. There's going to be moments where guys like Valanciunas, Steven Adams, these type of guys can work him a little bit. However, the counter to that would be when the Nets would play drop coverage, they were an elite rebounding team, even though they were giving up a lot of threes and above the break threes and whatnot. And when you're switching, I mean, you need to have these bodies down there. And you alluded to it. I mean, a front court of Cam Johnson, Mikal Bridges, even Dorian, who's a long, tough guy. All that next to Claxton is not a very strong team. And with the meta in the NBA kind of shifting back towards offensive rebounding, I think a lot of teams are realizing how valuable offensive rebounding is. It's certainly something that came back to hurt them this year. I would not put that all on Nic Claxton, which I think, is part of why I'm on this side of the fence.
Also, it's like, man, it's so hard for me to judge Claxton because you say all that stuff, and I agree with a lot of stuff too. And you forget, like, he didn't have a point guard really last year.
No,
when Dinwiddie was playing very well, he played. They had chemistry, right? Schroeder and him got along pretty well from the short time that they were together, right? Is it not having the correct power forward next to him? Is not having a point guard? And another thing I want to say with the switching, I'm so happy you brought that up. If you're gonna have a team that doesn't switch, that severely hurts Claxton's value. So you're not gonna get the guy's best skill.
I'm so glad you brought that up. Think about, I'm gonna throw him a bone here. Think about your Nic Claxton. You're coming into your contract year.
Cool. Yep. Mm-hmm.
You come in, and after the best year of your career, the offense is built around Ben Simmons, a heavily featured. We'll say that Ben Simmons clogging up the paint. Defenders aren't going to guard him, and on one end you have way less room to operate in the paint on offense, and then on the other end, your best skill is not being showcased at all in a contract year. And I will give him credit. I talked to people. He did not raise a fuss. His agent, they didn't say a word. And you can argue about his play. And, maybe he didn't play up to the standard that he had set in 2023. And as a longtime defender myself, I'll certainly call him out for that. But it was a very odd situation for a guy to walk into in his walk year. And I think the Nets appreciated his willingness to stick with that. I'll say that. But it's everything. It's like you said, it's the four, it's the point. I mean, he didn't play as well as he should have on his own. And he also perhaps was not in a situation to maximize his talents. I think no matter where you fall, I think both sides can agree it was certainly a mixture of that.
You had this quote in your article for Nets Daily. I think it was talking about the deafening silence when Claxton was not traded. And I'm just a fan. I talk to some people. Some people shoot me DMs. Sometimes it's bullshit. Sometimes it's real. You know what I mean? I throw it out because if I was a fan, I want to know. Mm-hmm. I heard from everybody that they were looking to trade him. I heard 2 teams, and that the 2 teams came. Their names got released eventually. OKC being one of them. Mm-hmm. Man, did the Nets put themselves in a hole by not trading him? Because now you have to give him the deal? Because then you're losing the asset. It's a big asset to lose for nothing if you let him walk. And if he wants to walk, obviously. Remember, he's not a restricted free agent. If these deuces, he's gone. That's it.
Yeah. They certainly, I think, the day after the trade deadline, that was the decision. That was the day they decided how hard they were going to pursue re-signing Nic Claxton in free agency. And I think now we're at the stage where it's just about executing. Their minds are made up. And then we'll go into it. But I think the one thing that made them feel secure about it is these contracts. The TV deal got released today for the NBA, and it's basically confirmed now that we're going to have the max increase of 10%, the salary cap going up. And when you start planning out what $22, $23, $24 million gets you over the next few years, it's really nothing crazy. I mean, it's really nothing crazy. And we were growing, I remember when LeBron and the Heat signed in Miami, they were getting 18, 16, 17 million. It is an entirely different landscape than the one I think a lot of us grew up in. And for me personally, the era where I really started paying attention to the NBA on a deeper level.
Oh, absolutely. And I know it's crazy. Maybe I'm going to get a little flack for saying this, but if you look at a Cam Johnson, look at his contract, I think he has 2 years left or something. We talk about how bad it is. I might have that wrong, but basically what I'm trying to say is that could be taken out if you want to give it to Claxton. You know what I mean? If you want to make a move, it's not that crazy. Nets did it last year, right? They had to re-sign CJ. So what did they do? They had to make a trade. They traded I think it was Joe Harris. They had to trade to open up the money. That can be done. It's not crazy.
No, it's not. And I mean, that's what $20 million get. I've also defended Cam Johnson a lot this season. I mean, he did not, again, another guy who didn't really play up to potential, but was not in a great situation. At the end of the day, $20 million, that's what it gets you. A good 3-point shooter with size, fine defender, not going to break you down defensively. Maybe you're a little small if you play him at the 4, but $20 million is not going to get you a perfect player. Not anymore.
So Lucas, we just mentioned that the new TV deal just kicked in. So now is Claxton's $23 million deal go up now because it's more does he make more money now?
I don't know if that changes it, because I think, NBA execs, Brooklyn, we knew this TV deal. We knew this spike was incoming, and his market is I don't think going to change. I think you could maybe see the Nets try to front load it as they did it with Cam Johnson. So next year, they're not contending. It's very unlikely that they will, put together a contending team. I'm not going to say it doesn't matter what you pay him next year, but it's not going to affect really your long-term or short-term plans. So if you want to give him maybe $26 million next year, and then it goes down to $24 million, we kind of saw this with the Cam Johnson contract, it really won't kill the Nets, because by the time they're building a roster that they want to contend, at least this is the long-term plan, $24 million 2-3 seasons from now, it's going to be 15-16% of the cap. That's about a sixth, about a seventh of the cap. It is really not a prohibitive number for a guy that I believe is better than other centers in that price range. I think he's better than a guy like Nikola Vucevic. I think he's better than a guy like Miles Turner. I think he was better, can be better than a guy like Jared Allen making that money. I think that it's what it gets you. That's a top 60, top 70 salary. I'm paying that for Clax at the end of the day.
I like you a lot, Lucas, but you're absolutely crazy when it comes to the centers. I think Jared Allen's a lot better. I think the other guys you mentioned, you can make an argument for them, but I see Claxton like totally in the middle of the road. But I say, I feel like if you have to determine his playing style, like the playing style is so important to get the value out of him, how good is he then?
That's a very fair point. That's a very fair point. That's a very fair point. Well, I would say this. Obviously, he's a better switch defender than drop. I think that's what we're talking about. Absolutely. However, it's not that he's some sieve in drop coverage, right? I also think the other thing about when they played a lot of drop this year is their point of attack defense really was not that great. It was Spencer Dinwiddie who started to fade pretty quickly. It was Cam Thomas. And off the bench, you had Dennis Smith Jr., but even a guy like Lonnie Walker, these were the guards you trusted with getting over screens. It was a Mikal Bridges who was not the defender he was in Phoenix. But I also think, fans will bring up the on-offs, him and Day'Ron Sharpe. My ultimate thing is that Clax is pretty much a player designed to elevate a good team to great. And Day'Ron is a player that's designed to make a bad team a little bit less bad by getting you these extra possessions, by hustling you into offensive rebounds and making up the difference where if you're not going to score every time, at least you're walking into better possessions. And we saw with Claxton on a good team that didn't necessarily depend on those extra possessions as the way the Nets did this year. He led the league in field goal percentage. And I've tweeted all the clips. It was not just a bunch of alley-oop dunks. So that fell from 70% to 62% this year. You assume he's probably not the best finisher in the league, but also maybe a little better than what he showed this year. That's a really good finisher. And I hear you on the drop defense, but it's not that he is ultimately a bad defender, that you can't play him. I think he is a trump card in a lot of ways where, okay, you're maybe not switching every possession, but man, when it gets rough, guys going off, you can switch these pick and rolls. You can have him on the perimeter and hopefully have that backline defense that we talked about with Clowney still there. He probably can't anchor a top 5, top 10 defense as a drop-only guy, but man, he can be a leading role, take a leading role, in a defense like that, in my opinion. And I think that's why I think that's a very valid critique, and that would be kind of where I land on that discussion.
I think that's more than fair. I think that's more than fair. I look at the NBA and I look at the centers. How many centers actually make $20 million or more?
So I looked this up in the article.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I looked this up in the article. I'll pull it up right now. I think it's about, if you include, I think it's about a dozen or 13, something like that. So if we go by this last year, like last year's salaries, not including guys that could be free agents, you obviously have Nikola Jokic and Joel Embiid. You have Rudy Gobert. These are all guys like max contract level. That's 3. You got Kristaps Porzingis going down the list. You have Bam. These are all guys above 30 million. DeAndre Ayton, Domantas Sabonis. Now you get into the 20s, high 20s, and you have Jaren Jackson Jr., who will undoubtedly sign a max contract extension in a couple years. You have Brook Lopez at 25 million. And now we're in Nic Claxton territory, where you go below Brook Lopez and you have Draymond Green, Miles Turner, Clint Capella, Jared Allen, Nikola Vucevic. And when you start getting down to that level, what is that, 10 or 11, 12?
Mm-hmm.
Get down to that level, I'm very comfortable paying Nic Claxton that, personally.
I think that's fair. Like I said, if the Nets are not going to be a switching team, then that changes my mind a lot. But I don't know what they're going to do. But with Jordi, I keep on saying this. I've been very lazy. I did an interview about a month ago with a writer who follows like Team Canada for Raptors Republic. It's a website.
Mm-hmm.
And he kind of broke down their offense, Team Canada's offense. And Jordi uses a lot of stuff you'd see in Sacramento, a lot of stuff you see in Denver, a lot of dribble handoffs, Princeton offense, point series. And as you probably know, Lucas, you're very educated in this stuff. You need a center or a guy at the elbow at least who's gonna be able to play make at least a little bit.
Yeah.
We know Claxton can dribble a little bit, but do you trust Claxton in that role that you would see a Sabonis in?
Yeah, I think this is something I'm really interested to talk to Jordi about. And it sounds like, I mean, you have not been lazy. You've been doing your research, breaking down Team Canada offense. So give yourself a little credit there. It's interesting because, right, you would be building, who knows, lip service. We won't know till we see it on the court. Yep. But you're building that sort of offense with a guy who can do the cherry on top, right? You're building it with a guy who can get all the way to the rim and finish in 2 or 3 dribbles. But you're not building it really around a guy who we can see making all the passing reads. You know what I mean? It's kind of inside out. You're doing it in reverse that way. I don't really buy that Claxton is going to be the passer that like Domantas Sabonis or Kelly Olynyk can dish it for Team Canada. But I do think there's a little bit more you can get out of him in the fake DHO game, dribble handoffs, 2-man game. I don't think you're going to get to the complex stuff really, but I think there is more value you can squeeze out of him. They really didn't give him the ball at all this year against mismatches when teams would switch. I think I would trust him a little more like a guard. I remember the Sacramento game 2 years ago, posted up guys like Malik Monk, a couple times getting good looks. That's kind of more where I would trust him. Finish these plays, post up a switch every now and then, fake DHO. I certainly would not build an offensive scheme around his decision making. No. Yeah. So we'll see. I don't, I'm not convinced Jordi's going to come in there and try to do that. But I do hopefully think he'll be able to squeeze a little bit more offensive value out of him.
Okay, so this is I'm making this up. No one's talked to me about this. I don't want to make that very clear. But I'm trying to think of a way that we could be competitive, that we could kind of keep the cap down still. Like I said, Clax could just go sign somewhere else if he doesn't want to, help the Nets in a sign and trade. Mm-hmm. Let's say he leaves, right? Whether sign or trade or just straight out free agency, and Nets might have just re-signed. So I'm not sure if he's trade eligible yet, but I would love to get the guy you just mentioned, Kelly Olynyk, to be part of the offense. Team, Jordi, Olynyk already knows the offense with Team Canada, brings it to Brooklyn, helps them get used to it. I would love that. I already love Kelly Olynyk, and I think it's a great fit, possibly.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to play him next to Claxton, to be honest. I think, Kelly's a player that's just kind of underrated, I think, league-wide, or at least maybe not underrated. Nerds like us really
know. He's good.
He's good. He's good. Nerds like us know that he can hoop. Yeah, that's certainly a player that would fit. I would like to see – I'm glad you brought that up. The Nets were really one of the worst passing teams in the league last year, I think, league-wide. Like, Dennis Schroeder comes in, and he can pass, but he's 6'1". He's 6 feet tall, maybe. He's not dissecting it. He's just – there are physical limitations there. Mikal Bridges made strides reading offenses. I think he's a much better passer. I don't think he's breaking down defenses. And then once Royce O'Neal left, you really lost your best swing passer, your best extra passer. Claxton is not like dicing people up in the short roll. So I would love to bring in guys that can be connected passers at any level, whether they have the ball in their hands, whether they're on the wing, whether they're in the short roll. That's I think my favorite part of a potential Kelly O, visit to Brooklyn.
That would be awesome. I think I might be wrong. I think he's making like $12 million. So you're not going to get killed on the contract. We had a team on the Nets that I think we had. I don't know I'm embarrassed to say this. Did we have less than 5 charges taken this last year?
Oh, I know it was last in the league. I know it was single digits.
Horrible. You get Kelly Olynyk could hustle, maybe get that fire underneath people's asses a little bit. I don't know that. Anything else you want to say about the Claxton topic before we put a pin in it?
I think we really covered it all. I think it's I think no matter what side you stand on, my pitch would be beyond, because I'll argue about his value all day. I'll say the switching, the rim finishing, whatever. I think beyond that, the adjustment for fans seeing these contracts, seeing what $25 million a year gets you, it's not cost prohibitive to the Nets. That is my underlying argument. There is nothing for this team at this state that paying him $24 million a year will prevent you from doing were you to pay him $18 million a year. And I know that's not a great way to conduct business all of the time. Like, oh, it's $6 million, whatever. That philosophy is not inherently winning. But I think right here with this player, with this asset, it's something that you can feel comfortable about.
Oh, yeah. Do you let him walk for nothing? If it's going to be the difference of a couple of million? Hell no. You got to give him the extra million to stay. You put yourself in the situation. Anyway.
Yeah. The relationship is good, I think, in Brooklyn. I think they appreciate each other. They gave him that 2-year, $8 million a year extension, and he worked his ass off, got in the gym, got a lot better. This year, as I alluded to earlier, he comes into camp. Things maybe aren't like breaking his way. Puts his head down, plays. He's playing really well in that start of the year. There's a mutual interest in a reunion, especially when you look at the type of guy that he is, what he's into, the fashion industry. There's reasons for him to stay in Brooklyn, both with the organization and the city itself. And that is the last thing I would say. I would be very surprised if he does not resign.
They did almost trade him, though, Lucas. Toronto. Saying. Either way, anyway, I want you to put on the GM hat, whatever it may be. We're all hypotheticals here. What's the first move you make? You are now Lucas Kaplan, GM of the Brooklyn Nets.
Well, I mean, I would resign him. I mean, I would hope to that despite a change in the general manager's office, he'll still resign with me. And then I would trust my scouting department and look to try to trade into the back end of the first round, second round of this draft. I mean, I would be surprised if there's absolutely nothing from the Nets on draft day. We know they like to make draft day trades. That's been a fixture of the Sean Marks regime. I know they're busy on the draft boards. You got a guy you like that's falling. You get active. I would say that would be my first, and it probably will be what they do as well. And then me personally, you pick a direction. I'm looking at a guy like Trae Young on the trade market. Like if his value is really lower than Brandon Ingram's, if he's this distressed asset, if teams covet DeJounte Murray more, if any of that is true, who knows? I want to make this team fun. I want to make them more enjoyable. I want to get them to playoff status, if not a contender, because theoretically you still have assets to move after that. I am fully on the camp of you can bring in a star level player, an all NBA level player that can elevate this team a little bit, make them more fun. I'm all in on that trend. And, Donovan Mitchell's been the long rumored target. We'll see about the extension, whatever, but I'm working the phones heavy. So I'm curious to see where you land on that. If it's maybe not the Donovan trade, whatever, that's been the long rumored one, where you just feel on their need to trade for a guy who would become the best player on the team.
Okay, about 4 weeks ago, right before they got eliminated, I got a call of man, it looks like he's been unhappy, whatever. I'm like, bro, you think he's really gonna leave? I think they're gonna make him the king of Cleveland. I think there's no way in hell this dude leaves unless it's the Knicks and unless it's Miami. And I think I was looking at Miami's numbers. I don't think they can get him without putting in like Jimmy Butler's contract or a huge contract, something like that. So I don't see it happening with Miami. Maybe the Knicks, because the whole Nick Lord thing. He's from New York, but I think he's going to be the next LeBron. I really do, and I think it's Garland who heads out. And I love Garland. That's my guy. That's the guy I want.
I remember tweeting. I remember tweeting at the deadline when they got Mikhail, Mikhail for Garland swap seems pretty beneficial for both sides. I think we're way past that now. I don't think that's a serious discussion for either side. But I do think somebody, if they do trade Garland and if they do go the route you're suggesting, Mitchell's the guy. I think somebody is going to be very happy with Darius Garland.
I think the one position, I love Dennis Schroeder. I think if you want to add excitement to the team, I think you need a point guard. I think you need a downhill point guard. If you're going to play with the point series, you're going to point guard who's going to be running around, right? Who could cut, who could pass a little bit. Could you see Cam Thomas at point guard running the offense?
I can't see Cam as a full-time point guard, especially not yet. I don't think I don't think he's there as a player. I don't think that's the type of player he really is or should be. I mean, for Nets Film Focus, that doesn't mean he hasn't made strides as a playmaker, but you would want someone to take a little bit of that decision-making off him. You'd want to get him off the ball where he improved this year and where I think he actually does offer a lot of value as a guy who can get that catch and shoot three-pointer off whenever, a guy that is strong and underrated as an underrated athlete when he gets downhill. He has these big, strong body. He's just built solid. He can get to the rim. I would not look at Cam Thomas as a full-time primary decision maker. I think if you could I think he'd be great as the smallest player on the court. If you get a big wing initiating point guard, I mean, hell, man, Ben Simmons, you know what I mean? But no, I wouldn't really look to that route, as I know has been discussed.
So it's so funny you brought that up because I can't believe I forgot to mention that the writer I was talking to is like, man, I was just thinking about Ben Simmons would do very well in the point series offense coming off the elbow. He can go downhill. He can hand it off.
Talk about a beneficial, a beneficial relationship for him in a contract year. I mean, contract year Ben Simmons. He's going to be motivated to. We'll see. We'll see if the Nets can squeeze some offensive value out of him. Obviously, his back has to be okay, and we hope it is. But you think about the type of player Ben Simmons. I'm not saying he's going to be all NBA, all star, but you think about the type of player he is.
Yeah.
You imagine Jordi is excited to work with that and to try to squeeze value out of that. So we'll see.
Yeah, man, I'm going to make a prediction right now with you. Ben Simmons will be an all-star next year because that's just the Nets curse. I believe the Nets are cursed. It always happens. So I don't be shocked when he's an all-star next year. Calling it now.
And then they pay him a max or they re-sign him for a huge number after his all-star season.
Of course. All right, we're going to start winding things down. Last time, what's your favorite jersey? I'm going to ask you, what is your favorite Nets court of all time? It could be New Jersey. It could be Long Island. It could be Brooklyn. Whatever you want. What's your pick?
One that made me feel very nostalgic it's the one in Brooklyn, I think from 2 or 3 years ago. Do you remember when they put the old school New Jersey logo with the little Brooklyn B in the middle of it?
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so they had that decal all over the court.
The blue one, right? It was a light blue color.
Yeah, I think it was. So it was like the old school logo that I grew up with, and then the little Brooklyn B basketball in the middle of it. But most importantly, it was that nice orange brown court with the stage lighting that really pops in Barclays. I think when they do that, like the gray court, I get it. It looks cool. But there's something about that lighting and that color in Brooklyn that just really pops, whether you're in person or on the TV. So I would say I do love that court.
Well, unfortunately, Lucas, you're one of the many people who are wrong about that. The gray court is unique and special, and I love it. So sorry, you're completely wrong. Sorry.
Really, just traditionalist versus modernist, dude. Who can argue?
All right, man. Let's get some plugs out for you. Anything you want to throw out there?
Yeah, dude. I mean, just my Twitter, Lucas Kaplan _. Writing at Nets Daily. I'm on double duty this time of year, covering the New York Liberty and anything that the Nets do in the off season. Just wrote an article about J.R. Holden departing for Detroit. A lot of hires away from the Nets organization this summer. So
5 now? Five, I think.
I think 4.
Something like that. It's up there.
All pretty significant positions too. So yeah, anytime news never stops, and I'm there. Nets Daily, my Twitter. So y'all hit me up there, and appreciate you for having me on, Pete. And it's always a good time, even when we disagree.
Of course. Do you work for the Nets now? Do you do something for the Nets?
Yeah, you might have heard about it, man. Nets Film Focus, man. We're putting out episodes. We're bringing a little bit of that X's and O's, a little bit of that hard-hitting analysis to the team stage. Very thankful for them letting me go on their editing team. And it's a great series, man. I mean, honestly, it's not like I'm conscripted what to say. I think it's real good analysis, and it's real professionally done. So Nets Film Focus on Brooklyn's YouTube channel, on their Twitter, on my Twitter. It's been a good time, man.
Yeah, like maybe they put in a word for me, get my stuff up there too one day.
Yeah, dude. Maybe we'll just infiltrate the whole organization with Nets Twitter homies. Maybe hopefully the coaching staff one day too.
All jokes aside, I'm very happy for you. You put in the work, and I'm happy the organization rewarded someone who, like I just said, put in the work and whatnot. A lot of teams don't do this, so shout out to the Nets for doing this. And if you guys want to reach me, you can find me at NetsFansYouKnow on Twitter, on YouTube. You're watching this, you're already on YouTube. Make sure you like and subscribe. Have a great day. Have a great night. Let's go Nets. I'll see you next week.